The elevator wasn't working, so Penelope took the stairs. As she walked past, she caught a bit of her fiancé's conversation, and was stunned by what he said. "Hi there. Before we get started, let us know where you're tuning in from. Make sure you've subscribed to the channel and hit the like button. Enjoy the show." Penelope woke up to the sharp blare of her alarm and shot up in bed. Her hand instinctively reached for the nightstand, fumbling for the button to silence the annoying sound. 6:30 a.m. That gray, rainy hour when the world outside still felt like night, especially in this stubborn April that refused to give way to real spring. Today was important. A big client meeting where she had to present a new contract. The future of the entire project hinged on it. On days like this, time seemed to sprint. The clock hands raced twice as fast, while her to-do list only grew like a snowball rolling downhill. "Ashton, get up, I'm running late." She gave the man next to her a gentle nudge. He was buried face down in the pillow. He mumbled something, rolled over, and pulled the blanket over his head, shielding himself from the chaos of the morning and the responsibilities that came with it. Penelope just shook her head. Her fiancé was never a morning person. Unlike her. She'd inherited her early bird habits from her grandmother, who always said, "The early riser gets the lucky break." Ashton's work was flexible. Some kind of investments, projects, meetings with partners and investors. To be honest, even after nearly a year of living together, she still didn't fully understand what he actually did. Whenever she tried to ask, he would just laugh it off. "Sweetheart, you've got legal jargon swirling in your head all day. Why burden yourself with my stuff too?" After a quick shower and a fast blow-dry, trying not to wake Ashton, Penelope slipped into a sharp navy blue suit she'd bought recently. It was on the pricey side. Almost half of her first salary back when she started as a junior lawyer 15 years ago. Now, she dropped that kind of money without blinking, came with the job. She liked how it fit. Flattered her figure, but still looked professional enough for a high-ranking corporate lawyer. Her mom used to say, "A good suit is half the success for a businesswoman. The other half is confidence and a clear mind." Her mom had a lot of sayings. Like how she should be careful with Ashton. Called him too slick. Men like that, Penelope, are like brand new $100 bills. Shiny on the outside, but look closer, and they're not always real. Penelope always brushed off those warnings. Her mom had been suspicious of every guy since her first love, Brandon, the boy from college. A poor boy, her mom would scoff. Penelope had cried over that one. Brandon might not have been the son of a factory director like her dad, but he was a decent guy, an honest engineer. It just hadn't worked out. But Ashton was different. He understood her without her needing to explain. Brought her flowers just because. Knew how to make her feel special. And he was successful. The downtown apartment said enough. She quickly put on some makeup, mascara, a little concealer to hide the lack of sleep, and a neutral shade of lipstick. Grabbing the briefcase filled with documents she'd worked on until 2 a.m., she kissed Ashton's cheek and rushed out the door. In the hallway, she immediately realized she'd forgotten her watch. That small ritual she never skipped at the start of her workday. The old watch with a pearly face, her father's gift for graduation 20 years ago. He'd said, "Time, Penelope, is your most valuable asset. Guard it." A year later, he was gone. A heart attack at his desk. She had to go back and quietly sneak into the bedroom, trying not to wake Ashton. In the morning rush, she hadn't noticed she'd left the watch on the vanity next to her makeup bag. It was lying right beside a photo of the two of them, tanned and smiling against the backdrop of a turquoise sea. That vacation on the islands last summer. 5-star all-inclusive, tours, shopping. That's when Ashton proposed. It was perfect, romantic, with expensive champagne, at sunset, and a 1.5-carat diamond ring. Like something out of a movie. Everything with Ashton felt like a movie. Easy, beautiful, dazzling. Sometimes maybe a little too perfect. Stepping outside, Penelope winced at the light drizzle. Late April, but it felt more like November. She pulled a compact umbrella from her bag, a gift from Ashton. Some fancy brand she couldn't even pronounce, and hurried toward the metro station. It was already close to 8, no traffic yet, but the ride to the business center would still take at least an hour. The metro car was unusually empty. Penelope was surprised. Normally, at this time, there wasn't even room to stand without being squished against the tired, sweaty bodies of other commuters worn down by city life. She took a seat by the window and opened her work email on her phone. What she saw made her stomach drop. An email from her boss, Igor, sent the night before. Just a reminder, the meeting with Alpha Construction is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Make sure all materials are ready, and don't be late like last time. Tomorrow. Penelope felt her face flush with embarrassment. She'd gotten the day wrong. All that anxiety yesterday, the sleepless night going over documents, the morning rush, and for nothing. The meeting was tomorrow. Lately, she'd been more scatterbrained. Especially with the wedding coming up. She and Ashton had set the date for June, less than 2 months away now, and there was still so much to do. Pick out a dress, book the restaurant, send the invitations. As she stepped off at her station, she ran through her options. Going to the office didn't make much sense. The documents were ready, and there wasn't anything urgent. Plus, the office was half empty this week. Most of the team had gone off to a corporate training retreat, at Birch Resort, of all places. The same one she'd visited with her family when she was about 10. She wondered if the old linden alley and the wooden gazebo by the pond were still there. I'll go back home, Penelope decided. Ashton will be happy. We can have breakfast together, like we used to when we first started dating and couldn't get enough of each other. Then I'll work from home. Most of the team's away anyway. When she stepped into her building, one of those old ones with stucco details on the facade and wide windowsills on thick walls, she was greeted by Lorna, the concierge. A sharp-eyed retired math teacher, she'd been manning the front desk for over 15 years. Penelope, dear, you're not at work? Lorna asked, never one to miss a single detail in the lives of the residents. Mixed up the meeting date, Penelope admitted. Figured I'd come back. Ah, I get it. My late husband was just like that. Scatterbrained, especially as he got older. Used to go out for juice and come home with milk, she said with a fond smile. By the way, the elevator's out again. Damn thing. We've called someone, but who knows when they'll show up. I remember back in the 80s, we had a concierge here named Hugh. When he was around, nothing ever broke down. Always had spare parts in that beat-up briefcase of his, fixed things right away. Penelope gave her a polite smile but didn't stick around to hear yet another story about the legendary Hugh. Their apartment was on the 6th floor, not too high up. Besides, at her last checkup, the doctor had told her she needed more physical activity. Sitting at a desk all day and grabbing meals on the go had started to show, even though she was only 35. It's fine, Lorna, I'll take the stairs. Good for the figure, wedding's coming up, time to get in shape, she joked, then headed toward the staircase. As she climbed the wide marble steps, worn smooth over decades by the residents of this old, dignified building, Penelope thought about how surprised Ashton would be to see her home in the middle of the workday. Maybe she'd even make him breakfast. That mushroom and cheese omelette he loved so much. Lately, they rarely had breakfast together. Her mornings were packed with meetings, and he always had his own mysterious errands, which he never explained in detail. Sometimes she felt like they were living parallel lives, only occasionally crossing paths in the same apartment. And yet, when they first started dating, he used to text her 20 times a day and call over the smallest things. It's normal, she told herself. Every relationship cools down eventually and turns into something steadier. Like my parents. 30 years together and still going. When she reached the 5th floor and turned onto the landing, she heard Ashton's voice. Odd, it wasn't coming from inside their apartment, but from somewhere in the hallway. Maybe he'd stepped out for a smoke. But she was sure Ashton had quit before they even met. Penelope was about to call out to him, but something in his tone made her stop. He was speaking harshly, in clipped sentences, nothing like the way he talked to her or their friends. His voice was cold, aggressive, almost threatening. Listen carefully, Deborah, she heard him say. I'm not kidding, and you're running out of time. Either you pay me the full amount by the end of the week, $50,000, every last cent, or you'll never see the boy again. I've got it all planned. Penelope froze in place, unable to believe what she was hearing. Deborah? Who was Deborah? In a year of living together, she'd never once heard that name. And what boy? What $50,000? Her heart pounded in her throat, and her temples throbbed. Don't pretend you don't get it, Ashton continued, his voice so chilling it made her shiver. You know I'm dead serious. And don't even think about going to the police. I have connections, you'll regret it. This isn't blackmail. It's a business deal. Money for the kid. Simple as that. Penelope felt the ground vanish beneath her. The hallway swam before her eyes. She slowly sat down on the step, too afraid to move, terrified he'd hear her. Only one thought echoed in her mind. This can't be real. Not Ashton. Not the man I was about to marry. You've got until Friday, Ashton went on, still unaware she was listening. 50 grand, and we're done. You'll never see me again. That's a promise. Penelope clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. Her thoughts spun, refusing to form a clear picture. It felt like she'd been thrown into some ridiculous soap opera where everything had flipped upside down. Her fiancé, smiling, charming Ashton, was threatening some woman over a child. That couldn't be real. For a second, she even thought maybe he was rehearsing a scene for a play. He had mentioned having actor friends, after all. But that cold, calculated tone left no doubt. Ashton wasn't acting. Well, good, he said suddenly, his voice tinged with satisfaction. Then it's settled. I'll wait for the transfer. The conversation was clearly wrapping up. Penelope realized she couldn't stay there. Ashton would come back up and see her. Silently thanking fate that she hadn't told him she was coming home, she tiptoed down a few steps. Then, almost running, she flew down the remaining flights, careful not to trip, and burst out of the building. Forgot something, dear? Lorna called after her. Yeah. Left my phone at the office, Penelope blurted out the first excuse that came to mind. She headed toward the metro with quick, shaky steps, not really seeing where she was going. Ashton's words echoed in her ears, making it impossible to think straight. Up ahead, a familiar sign caught her eye, the coffee shop she used to hang out in with her college friends. A light drizzle was still falling, so she ducked inside, hoping to clear her head. The smell of fresh pastries and cinnamon filled the air. Behind the counter stood a plump woman in a white apron. Just like 20 years ago, though it wasn't the same one. Penelope ordered a strong black coffee and settled into a corner table by the window, staring at the raindrops sliding down the glass. What now? Where could she go? Home was out of the question, Ashton was there. The office? No. Someone would definitely notice something was wrong and start asking questions. Her mom? Definitely not. She could already hear the, "I told you so." Penelope pulled out her phone and checked for messages. Nothing from Ashton. He hadn't realized she wasn't at work yet. Her hands trembled as she typed a strange search query, "What to do if you find out your fiancé is a criminal?" The search results were a bizarre mix: films, forums, psychology articles. Stockholm Syndrome, narcissistic abusers, how to spot a sociopath. Headlines filled with words that had seemed so far removed from her life just yesterday. The perfect image she had built, of a future with Ashton, the wedding in a garden, a honeymoon in the Maldives, their chic apartment in a prestigious neighborhood, was crumbling like a house of cards. Her phone buzzed. Ashton's name lit up the screen. Penelope jumped, nearly spilling her coffee. Should she answer? She declined the call and quickly texted, "In a meeting, can't talk. We'll text later." A few seconds later, he replied, "How did it go?" "I'll be home late, meeting investors. Don't wait for dinner." She stared at the screen, trying to understand how the same man who had just threatened someone over a child could now casually text her about dinner plans. Like he was split in two. The caring fiancé for her, the ruthless blackmailer for someone else. Ordering another coffee, Penelope tried to piece everything together. What did she know for sure? Ashton had threatened a woman named Deborah. He mentioned a child. Demanded $50,000. So, it was blackmail, or a debt. And the boy? Could he be Ashton's son? Then it hit her. Like a bolt of lightning, a memory surged forward. About 6 months ago, they had gone to an art exhibit. They'd run into a woman with a little boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Ashton had gone rigid. The woman had gone pale. The boy had stared at them, eyes wide, eyes exactly the same green as Ashton's. She hadn't thought anything of it at the time. "Deborah, it's been a while," Ashton had said stiffly. "Yes, it has," the woman had replied, clearly eager to leave. "We need to go. Come on, Cody." The boy turned to look at Ashton with a strange expression, curiosity mixed with fear. Penelope had asked who the woman was, and Ashton had just waved it off. An old acquaintance. Nothing important. He'd been oddly quiet for the rest of the evening. The next day, he showed up with flowers and took her to an expensive restaurant, like he was trying to make up for something he wasn't admitting to. Deborah, the boy, $50,000. It was all forming a picture so ugly, Penelope didn't want to believe it. How could she be so unlucky? First Brandon, with all his insecurities, and now Ashton. A polished exterior hiding something terrifying. Another memory surfaced. After that run-in at the museum, Ashton had started disappearing in the evenings more often, saying he had business meetings. One time she found a receipt in his jacket pocket, 2 kids' milkshakes and a slice of cake. When she asked about it, he laughed. Met with a partner, he had his kid with him. I had to play the friendly uncle. At the time, it had made sense. But now Penelope saw it differently. Ashton had probably been meeting his son. But why keep that a secret? What had happened between him and Deborah? And more importantly, what did those threats mean? Lost in thought, Penelope didn't notice the weather outside had changed. Spring sunlight was breaking through the clouds, lighting up the streets. People were rushing about, heading to work, meeting friends, running errands. Life was going on as usual, while hers was falling apart. What should she do? Call the police? And say what? My fiancé threatened someone over the phone. She didn't even know Deborah's last name, let alone have proof. And Ashton had said something about connections. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, Penelope already knew the truth. Her intuition, that same inner voice her mom always told her to trust, was screaming that she was in danger. She needed to find out the truth before taking her next step. And that meant starting with finding this Deborah. Penelope looked up and saw her reflection in the cafe window. A pale face, eyes wide with fear. She had been so afraid of being alone that she nearly married a monster. Maybe she should have listened to her mother. A quiet voice in her head, the same one that had once led her to Brandon, whispered, "Remember what it used to feel like. Remember what you lost." And for a brief second, an image came to her. A young man with an honest smile and kind eyes. Brandon, her first real love. It felt like a lifetime ago. A different world. A different Penelope. But now, with her present crumbling, the past felt warm and safe. Before Ashton, she'd sometimes searched for Brandon online but never found anything. He wasn't active on social media. Where was he now? What had happened to him? And why, when everything was falling apart, was he the first person she thought of? Penelope shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. This wasn't the time for sentimentality. She needed a plan. And the first step was finding Deborah. If Ashton was threatening her, she might be in danger too. After paying for her coffee, Penelope stepped out of the cafe and headed toward the metro station. A plan was slowly taking shape in her mind. First, find a safe place to stay, maybe with a friend, or in a hotel. Then, gather information about Deborah. A last name, an address, a phone number. The museum should still have surveillance footage from that day, unless they erase it monthly. And maybe she could check Ashton's phone contacts. But for that, she'd have to go back home. Just the thought of it made her shiver. How was she supposed to look into the eyes of someone she loved that very morning, and now feared? How could she pretend to be the clueless bride-to-be? Penelope realized she couldn't. At least not now, not when it all still felt so raw. She pulled out her phone and typed out another message to Ashton. Got caught up at work. Big deadline, might not make it back tonight. Don't wait up. Get some sleep. That would buy her a little time. Now she had to figure out where to spend the night. One name surfaced in her mind, Paige. A former classmate she'd recently reconnected with. Paige had her own place. Far from the city center, but safe. Ashton would never think to look there. The call only took a few minutes. Paige didn't ask many questions, just hearing the tension in Penelope's voice was enough. Of course, come over. My daughter's at her grandma's, so there's plenty of space. Tea and cookies will be waiting, just like the good old days. Those warm, simple words brought tears to Penelope's eyes. In a world that had suddenly turned cold and dangerous, there were still islands of safety and care. Thanks, Paige. I'll be there around 7. I'll be waiting. And Penelope, whatever's going on, we'll get through it. Just like we did in '98, remember? Penelope smiled faintly. Back in '98, they were still teenagers when some drunk guys cornered them at a school dance. They'd had to run out the back exit, then walk halfway across town soaked and scared, but they made it through. Together. I remember. We'll get through this. Hanging up, Penelope felt a spark of strength return. She had a plan for the next 24 hours. After that, she had to find Deborah and uncover the truth about Ashton, no matter how terrible it was. Paige's apartment was in an old building from the 1980s. Peeling paint in the stairwell, a creaky elevator with scratched-up walls, the smell of dampness. It all instantly took Penelope back to her childhood, before her father became a factory director and they moved into a fancy new place. Paige met her in a bathrobe, towel on her head, with the same bright smile she'd had 20 years ago. Penelope, come in. The kettle's on, she said, wrapping her in a big hug. You look awful. What happened? The hallway smelled of something freshly baked. On a side table sat a photo of a younger Paige and her husband, both in police uniforms, with their daughter, a little girl with pigtails and a goofy grin. Her husband had died in the line of duty 5 years ago, leaving Paige to raise their daughter alone. She never complained. It's a long story, Penelope sighed. Can I shower first? I feel like I got hit by a truck. Of course. There's a clean towel in the bathroom. The hot water helped clear her head a little. Standing under the stream, Penelope tried to sort through the chaos of the day. A day so impossibly long it felt like that morning belonged to another life. How fragile is the world we think is safe. One random twist, a broken elevator, and everything she thought was certain turned into a nightmare. When she came out of the bathroom, she found a feast laid out on the kitchen table, a steaming pie, blackcurrant jam, cookies. "Paige, is this all for me?" Penelope smiled, sitting down. "Well, who else would it be for?" Paige poured the tea into cups. "Now, come on, tell me what's going on." And Penelope told her everything. About Ashton, the conversation she'd overheard, Deborah and the boy, her fear and confusion. Paige listened quietly, only shaking her head from time to time. When the story came to an end, she said softly, "God, Penelope, what have you gotten yourself into?" "I honestly don't know how it happened," Penelope murmured, turning her cup in her hands. "I'm supposed to be a smart woman, a lawyer, and I ended up being a naive fool." "You're not a fool," Paige said firmly. "You just fell in love. Happens to the best of us. Remember how I married Gavin a month after we met? My mom nearly passed out. But your Gavin turned out to be a good man." "Yeah, I got lucky," Paige smiled at the memory. "You didn't. It happens. What matters is, you found out in time, before the wedding. It could have been a whole lot worse. So what do I do now?" "First, you sleep," Paige declared. "Things always make more sense in the morning. After that," she paused, thinking. "Maybe you should go to the police. I still have some contacts, I could ask around." Penelope shook her head. "What would I even tell them? That my fiancé threatened someone on the phone? I don't even have a recording. And who's to say it's even a crime? Maybe she owes him money or something. And the kid?" Paige reminded her. "He threatened a child. That's what I need to figure out. Who the boy is. Who Deborah really is. Maybe it's not what it sounds like." Penelope didn't fully believe what she was saying, but some part of her was still clinging to the hope that this was all just a terrible misunderstanding. "And how exactly are you planning to figure that out?" "First, I need to find Deborah. I remember what she looks like. I know her first name. Maybe I can try through social media." Paige shook her head. "Do you know how many Deborahs live in this city? Thousands. And not all of them are online. Even if you did find her, then what? Knock on her door and say, 'Hi, I'm the fiancé of the man who threatened you. Mind if we talk?'" She had a point. Penelope sighed. "I don't know / I just can't sit and do nothing." She pulled out her phone and checked her messages. Ashton had texted. "Everything okay? You usually reply faster." Doing her best to keep calm, she typed. "All good. Meeting ran long, grabbing dinner with colleagues. Project stuff." "What are you doing?" Paige asked, puzzled. "Buying time. He can't know that I'm onto him." "And how long are you planning to keep this up? A day? A week? A month?" Penelope closed her eyes. She was exhausted. The weight of the day had finally caught up with her, and her thoughts were starting to blur. "I don't know. I need to think." "Then get some sleep," Paige said gently. "Molly's room is all yours. We'll figure it out in the morning." As Penelope drifted off in a bed with a pink blanket and stuffed animals lining the shelves, a thought suddenly surfaced. The photo. The one from the art gallery. She'd taken a selfie in front of a painting, and accidentally caught Deborah and the boy in the background. She remembered showing it to her mom afterward when talking about the exhibit. It had to still be in her cloud storage. In the morning, Penelope thought as sleep finally pulled her under. "I'll check in the morning." She dreamed of Brandon. They were sitting on the rooftop of a high-rise in her childhood neighborhood, their favorite spot back in the day. Below, the city stretched out before them. Uniform apartment blocks, the old city center with its skyscrapers, and beyond that, futuristic towers. "Why did you leave?" she asked in the dream. "Why did you let me go?" he replied, answering her question with another. Brandon looked exactly as he had 15 years ago, lean, with messy bangs falling into his eyes, worn-out jeans, and a checkered shirt. Just as she remembered him from university, just as she'd fallen in love with him. "You could have fought for us," she said. "And you could have tried to understand," he shook his head gently. Then they sat in silence, staring out at the city that lay before them like a map of all the lives they could have lived. The morning started with the smell of pancakes and the clatter of dishes in the kitchen. Penelope opened her eyes and didn't recognize the room at first. Then it all came back, and her chest tightened again. Paige was already bustling at the stove, humming a tune. "Morning, sleepyhead," she smiled. "Pancakes? You want syrup or jam?" "Both," Penelope smiled back, surprised to feel hunger. "What time is it?" "Almost 10. Has he called?" Penelope checked her phone. 3 missed calls from Ashton and a message. "Where are you?" "I'm worried. Call me when you wake up." "He called," she sighed. "I should probably text him something." "Eat first," Paige said firmly, placing a plate of steaming pancakes in front of her. "Then we'll deal with your situation." Over breakfast, Penelope told her about the photo from the gallery. "Now that's a lead," Paige perked up. "Let's find it." Together, they began combing through Penelope's cloud storage. There were over 1,000 photos, neatly organized into folders and albums. "It was last September," Penelope recalled. "A modern art exhibit." Finally, they found the right album. And there it was, a selfie of Penelope smiling in front of a painting, and in the corner, slightly blurred but visible, was the woman and the boy. The face wasn't crystal clear, but you could make it out. "Let's zoom in," Paige said, focused like she was on an investigation. "Deborah, right? She's in a business suit, polished. Looks successful. And the boy? Yeah, he really does look like your Ashton. Especially the eyes." Penelope nodded silently. The resemblance was undeniable. "What's that?" Paige pointed to the woman's chest. "Looks like a badge." They zoomed in even more. Hanging from Deborah's neck was a lanyard with a logo and partial text. "Integral. Something," Paige squinted. "Hard to read." "Integral Systems," Penelope said suddenly. "I saw that logo on some documents at work. It's an IT company, we signed a contract with them last year." "Perfect," Paige clapped her hands. "So she works there. We can find out her last name, her title." "And then what?" Penelope's anxiety crept back in. "Let's say we do find her. What am I supposed to say to her?" "The truth," Paige said simply. "You want answers, right? And I bet she does too. If Ashton threatened to take her kid, she deserves to know who she's really dealing with." Penelope paused, thinking. Paige was right, Deborah might be in danger too. Maybe even more than she was. And if the boy really was Ashton's son, this whole thing was far more serious than it seemed at first. "All right," she said, finally making up her mind. "I'll try to find her through work. Our office should have contact info for Integral Systems." "Perfect," Paige smiled. "Now let's talk about something even more important. What are you going to do about Ashton? He's clearly trying to reach you." Penelope glanced at her phone. Another missed call. "I'll have to reply. If I don't, he'll get suspicious." She quickly typed out a message. "Sorry, we stayed late at work last night. Slept over at Anna's, she lives near the office. Heading in now, we'll talk later." The reply came almost instantly. "Are you okay? You've been acting a little off lately." "He's on to me," Penelope whispered. Don't spiral, Paige said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. Maybe you really have been acting differently. People can feel that. I'll text back that I'm fine, just tired. After sending the message, Penelope let out a deep breath. I need to go to the office. Check the contact records for integral systems. And show my face. Just in case Ashton's watching. Smart, Paige nodded. Then come back here. Stay as long as you need. They hugged at the door, and Penelope suddenly realized how much she missed this kind of warmth, real, uncomplicated, without hidden motives. Thank you, Paige. I don't know what I'd do without you. Anytime, her friend smiled. And remember, you're stronger than you think. On the way to the office, Penelope found her mind drifting to the past. How had life ended up like this? Where had she taken a wrong turn? And again, her thoughts circled back to Brandon. They'd met during their first year of law school. She was the daughter of wealthy parents, he was a small-town guy accepted through a program for gifted students. The complete opposite of Ashton. Humble, a little shy, but with a solid backbone and strong values. He didn't know how to woo with grand gestures, but he could talk about literature until sunrise and debate justice with fiery passion. Their relationship had lasted 5 years. Brandon worked as a tutor on the side, refusing to take money from his parents. He wanted to earn everything himself. After graduation, he was offered a position in the prosecutor's office of a small town, and he took it. He saw it as a way to start building something real. Come with me, he said back then. To the middle of nowhere? With no future, she'd asked in disbelief. Her parents were pulling strings to get her into a top law firm. Her mom kept repeating, he's dragging you down. You deserve more. And Penelope chose the city. Chose the career. Brandon didn't argue, he simply packed his things and left. No drama, no scenes. Just one parting line. I'll always love you. But I need a wife who believes in me. And you, Penelope, only believe in money and status. At the time, she'd been hurt. Thought he was being unfair. Thought he didn't understand her. But now she wasn't so sure. Maybe he'd been right. Maybe her endless chase for security and comfort had led her straight into the arms of a man with no soul, no integrity. The office was unusually quiet. Most of the staff were still away on the corporate retreat. Penelope quickly pulled up the contract with Integral Systems in the company database. Listed among their representatives was Deborah Banks, Chief Financial Officer. It all lined up. Judging by her title and appearance, Deborah was clearly a successful businesswoman. But what was her connection to Ashton? And why had he resorted to threatening her using a child? Deborah's work number was listed among the contact details. Penelope jotted it down, weighing her options. Should she call directly, or try to meet her in person? The answer came unexpectedly. The database held another clue. According to the documents, Integral Systems' office was just 2 blocks away from their own business center. Penelope could walk there and request a meeting. After all, their companies worked together, nothing suspicious about that. She glanced at the clock. Almost noon. The perfect time for a business drop-in. She just needed to have a cover story ready in case Deborah got suspicious. Before leaving the office, Penelope did something she hadn't even considered before. She searched for information about Brandon. Brandon Lewis. Her previous searches had always turned up nothing. But now, a 2-year-old news article popped up, Brandon Lewis appointed Deputy District Attorney, Boston. And there was a photo. It was him, older, in a sharp suit. His hair shorter, his expression more serious, but the smile was the same. Slightly shy, honest. Something stirred in her chest. It felt good to know he was doing well. He'd followed his path, and never strayed from it. Focus, she reminded herself. This isn't the time. Steeling herself, she left the building and headed toward the office of Integral Systems. Ahead of her was a meeting with the woman who might know the real Ashton far better than she ever had. The Integral Systems office was inside a sleek, modern business center with a glass exterior. At the entrance stood a security guard, a stern man nearing retirement age with a neatly trimmed mustache who reminded Penelope of her old gym teacher. "Who are you here to see?" he asked, eyeing her carefully. "Deborah Banks," Penelope said confidently. "I'm with Team Legal Consulting, we're partners with your company." The guard made a call on the internal line, and a few minutes later, Penelope was riding the elevator to the 7th floor. Unlike the clunky one in her building, this elevator ran smoothly. Silent, mirrored walls, digital display. If the elevator at home hadn't broken down, I'd still be in the dark, Penelope thought. Funny how fate can shift because of something so small. A young receptionist with flawless nails led her into a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Behind a large dark wood desk sat the same woman from the photo, Deborah. Stylish haircut, tailored suit, pearl earrings. She looked tired, but carried herself with grace. "Hello," Deborah stood to greet her. "What can I do for you?" Now that they were face to face, Penelope's rehearsed cover story suddenly felt ridiculous. Instead, she chose honesty. "My name is Penelope Pace. And I need to talk to you about Ashton." Deborah froze. A flicker of fear flashed in her eyes before she quickly masked it. "I'm sorry, Ashton who?" she asked calmly, but her fingers nervously twisted the pen in her hands. "Ashton Henderson. My fiancé." A heavy silence fell between them. Deborah slowly sat back down in her chair, never taking her eyes off Penelope. Then she pressed a button on her intercom. "Kelly, hold all my calls and visitors for the next hour." She switched it off and gestured to the chair across from her. "Please, sit down. And tell me why you're here." Penelope sat, her heart pounding. A dozen ways to start the conversation rushed through her mind. But in the end, she just said, "Yesterday, I accidentally overheard Ashton threatening you on the phone." Deborah's face tightened, but she said nothing. Penelope went on. "He mentioned $50,000. And a boy. He said you'd never see him again if you didn't pay. What do you want from me?" Deborah asked quietly. "Money? Information?" "The truth," Penelope replied simply. "I want to know who I'm about to marry. Because the man I heard yesterday, that wasn't the Ashton I know." Deborah looked at her for a long moment, studying her. Then she opened a drawer and took out a photo. A boy, around 7 or 8, smiling on a swing. Same green eyes. Same shape of the mouth as Ashton. "This is Cody, my son. And Ashton's son, though he's never acknowledged him officially." "So it's true," Penelope breathed. "Did you think I made up a child to blackmail your charming fiancé?" Deborah's voice was sharp with bitterness. "No, Penelope. Cody is his son, born in a legal marriage." "Marriage?" Penelope felt the floor drop out beneath her. "Ashton never told me he was married." "Of course he didn't," Deborah said with a dry laugh. "Just like I'm sure he never told you a lot of things." She walked over to the small bar in the corner of the office. "Tea? Or maybe something stronger? I have whiskey. Seems fitting for a moment like this." "Tea, please." Penelope wasn't sure booze was a good idea right now. Her head was already spinning from everything she'd just learned. Deborah turned on the kettle and pulled down a box of tea and 2 delicate porcelain cups. "I'll get straight to the point," she said as she brewed the tea. "Ashton and I met 10 years ago. I was just starting out in finance, he was a rising star in an investment firm. It was a whirlwind romance. We got married in a fancy restaurant. Picture perfect. A year later, Cody was born." She placed a cup of fragrant tea in front of Penelope. And then I found out my husband was a pathological liar and a con man. He was running shady schemes at his company. When it was about to come to light, he vanished, with the client's money. Managed to avoid jail. And after that? He went right back to doing what he always does. What does he do? Penelope asked quietly. Finding wealthy women. Charming them, getting money out of them under all kinds of excuses. And when they've got nothing left to give, or start getting suspicious, he vanishes. He's very good at it, she sighed. I was the first to file for divorce. Not even because of the money. I just couldn't let someone like that be a father to Cody. Penelope took a sip of tea, feeling a bitter lump rise in her throat. Everything made sense now. After that, he disappeared, Deborah continued. Vanished for several years. No child support, no interest in Cody. I moved on. Started over. Built a career, raised Cody on my own. She paused, gazing out the window. Then 6 months ago, Ashton suddenly reappeared. Started spending time with Cody, bringing him gifts. I was so naive, I actually thought, maybe he's changed. Maybe he really wants to be a father. And then came the money talk. At first it was jokes, then it got more direct. I said no. That's when the threats began. What kind of threats? Penelope leaned forward. First, he threatened to take me to court and fight for custody. Said he had connections. That he'd prove I was an unfit parent. Then, she took a deep breath, then he started saying he'd just take Cody. That he had a plan. That I'd never see my son again unless I paid. And you didn't go to the police? Penelope asked, shocked. I did, Deborah said with a bitter smile. You know what they told me? Miss Banks, there's no case here. No solid proof of threats. No witnesses. Might just be a family dispute. Until something actually happens, we can't do anything. Classic. Penelope nodded. Sadly, it wasn't the first time she'd heard that kind of story in her line of work. So what are you going to do now, she asked, now that the threats are getting serious? I hired private security for Cody, Deborah replied. He doesn't go to school alone anymore. I've temporarily switched him to home learning. I'm trying to collect evidence, record calls, save messages. But Ashton's clever. Always calls from different numbers. Never writes anything directly. She looked at Penelope, eyes sharp. And you? What are you going to do? Me? Penelope hesitated. I don't know. Yesterday I thought I was marrying a man who loved me. Today, you found out who he really is, Deborah finished for her. A liar. A blackmailer. A manipulator. You're lucky, Penelope. Lucky you found out now, before the wedding. Before it became even harder to walk away. Penelope said nothing. Moments flashed through her mind that once seemed harmless. Ashton dodging questions about his past. Ashton changing the subject every time money came up. Ashton asking her to pay for his treatment when he claimed he was sick. How many women came after you, she asked at last. As far as I know, at least 3, Deborah replied, opening a drawer and pulling out a folder. I did my own digging when he started threatening me. I needed to know who I was really dealing with. Here, look. Penelope opened the folder. Inside were printed articles, photos, copies of documents. Ashton with different women. All beautiful, successful, well off. And Ashton under different names, Henderson, McKay, Green. News clippings about large sums of money disappearing from companies where he worked. A court record. Case dismissed for lack of evidence. This is unreal, Penelope whispered, flipping through the pages of what could have been her future. I know, Deborah nodded. I've been through it myself. First comes denial, then anger, then acceptance. It's like grieving a death. Except it's not the person who dies, it's the idea of who you thought they were. They sat in silence. Outside, the city buzzed with life, cars following their routes, people hurrying about, clouds drifting across the spring sky. Just an ordinary day, on which Penelope's entire world was falling apart. "Why are you telling me all this?" she asked, closing the folder. "Why didn't you just send me away?" "Because I know what it's like," Deborah said simply. "And because together, we have a better chance of stopping him." "Stopping him?" Penelope looked up. "How?" "By combining our evidence. I've got some recordings, not enough for a case, but combined with other material, they might be. If you've seen anything suspicious, saved any documents, messages." Penelope thought for a moment. There had definitely been red flags. The money Ashton borrowed for vague projects. The mysterious investors she never met. The papers he asked her to sign, calling them just formalities. "There are a few things," she nodded. "But I'm not sure they'd help. He never asked for big sums. Mostly just lived off my income, but that's not a crime." "Not yet," Deborah corrected. "But he was planning to. The wedding, what better excuse to get access to your accounts? And the threats to take Cody, that's not just a family dispute. That's a criminal offense. If we can get proof." Penelope's phone vibrated. She looked at the screen and turned pale. "Ashton." "Don't answer," Deborah said quickly. "Or better, answer, but keep your voice normal. He can't suspect anything." Penelope took a deep breath and picked up the call. "Hey," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Where are you?" Ashton's voice was tense. "I called your office, you're not there. The meeting's tomorrow, right?" Penelope hesitated, scrambling for a lie. "I'm at the library. Needed to find some case materials. Didn't want to be distracted, so I didn't pick up." "What library?" he asked, suspicion creeping into his tone. "The legal one. On 42nd Street. "All right," he said. He seemed to believe her. "What time will you be home?" "I ordered dinner, your favorite shrimp dish." Penelope felt a wave of nausea. Sit at a table with the man who threatened to kidnap his own child. Smile at him, pretend everything was normal. "I'll be late," she managed. "Don't wait up, I've got a lot to do." "You've been acting strange lately," Ashton said, his voice sharper now. "Is something going on?" No, just tired," she said quickly. "This project's draining. Sorry, I've gotta go. Library's closing soon." She hung up and looked at Deborah. "He suspects something." "Of course he does," Deborah nodded. "He's got a sixth sense for this stuff. Ashton reads people like books, he wouldn't have lasted this long otherwise." She stood up. "You can't go back home. Not until we have a plan." "I'm staying with a friend," Penelope said. "He doesn't know where." "Good," Deborah nodded. "Stay there. In the meantime, I'll reach out to a contact of mine, a former investigator. He's been helping me gather intel on Ashton. And you," she handed Penelope a business card, "call me tomorrow. We have to move fast. Especially now that he's on alert." Penelope took the business card, feeling an unexpected sense of relief. For the first time in the past 24 hours, she wasn't alone in this nightmare. Now there were two of them, two women whose lives had been torn apart by the same man. "Thank you," she said sincerely. "Me?" Deborah looked surprised. "For what?" "For not turning me away. For telling me the truth. Penelope felt tears rise to her eyes, "for helping me realize what that broken elevator actually saved me from." Deborah smiled for the first time during their entire conversation. "You know, nothing in life is accidental. Everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to. Now go, and be careful." As she stepped out of the business center, Penelope took a deep breath. Her mind was spinning with everything she had just learned, but deep inside, a new sense of determination was taking root. She wasn't just about to break off an engagement with the man she once thought was the love of her life, she was about to help protect a child he had threatened. And she wasn't alone in the fight. On her way back from Integral Systems, Penelope couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. She glanced over her shoulder more than once, but saw nothing suspicious among the rush of people going about their day. Paranoia, she told herself. Still, she decided to be cautious. Instead of heading straight to Page's, Penelope walked into a shopping mall, wandered between boutiques, and spent half an hour sitting in a cafe with a cappuccino, watching the crowd. Only after she was sure no one was following her did she finally make her way to Page's apartment. In the building's hallway, she ran into Page's neighbor, an elderly woman carrying a bag of groceries. The old lady gave her a long, curious look. "Looking for Page? And who are you to her?" "Old school friend," Penelope replied quickly, realizing it was better to keep things vague. "Ah," the neighbor said, dragging the word out. "She's not home. Left for work about an hour ago. Said she'll be back late." Penelope froze. Page hadn't mentioned she'd be gone, and she didn't have a key to the apartment. "Thanks for letting me know," she said politely and stepped back outside. It was already getting dark. The spring day was giving way to dusk, and the first streetlights had started to flicker on. Now what? Going home was out of the question. And going to her mom's wasn't safe either. It would be the first place Ashton would check if he suspected anything. A hotel? But she didn't have her ID, it was still at the apartment. Her phone buzzed in her jacket pocket. A message from Page. "Got called into work, emergency. Won't be home till late. Left the key with Lorna in Apt 56. Just tell her you're my cousin." Letting out a breath of relief, Penelope returned to the building. She got the key from the skeptical neighbor and finally stepped into her temporary safe haven. The apartment was quiet and empty. She turned on the TV just to fill the silence and pulled out the folder Deborah had given her. With every page she turned, the puzzle became clearer. Ashton Henderson, also known as McKay, also known as Green. Born to schoolteacher parents. Graduated top of his class from the economics department. Started his career at a bank, rose quickly through the ranks. Then came the first shady dealings, the first victims. Colleagues who trusted him with their money, thinking it was going into smart investments. Then a fake company, vanished client funds. Marriage to Deborah. The birth of a son. More schemes. More women deceived. In every photo, he was smiling, that same charming man she had lived with for a year and thought she'd spent her whole life with. Penelope suddenly remembered an old movie she used to watch with her mother. There was a con artist in it who said, "I don't steal, I just return what was stolen from people." Ashton was the opposite. He didn't return, he took. And not from thieves, but from those who had earned their living honestly. Her thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. The number was unknown. "Hello?" Penelope answered cautiously. "Penelope," a deep male voice said. "This is Dominic, a friend of Deborah's. Can we meet?" "How did you get my number?" she asked, instantly on edge. "From Deborah, of course. She asked me to reach out. We don't have much time. Ashton has started making moves." Penelope's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, making moves?" "Not over the phone," the man said sharply. "Meet me in an hour at the statue in City Park. I'll be wearing a blue jacket and holding a newspaper." He hung up before she could respond. Penelope stared at her phone, confused and uneasy. What was going on? Could she trust this man? What if it was a trap? She dialed Deborah's number, but there was no answer. After several rings, it went to voicemail. Penelope left a message. Deborah, it's Penelope. A man named Dominic just called and asked to meet. Is he really your friend? Please call me back as soon as you can. Still no reply. Penelope began pacing the apartment, unsure of what to do. Her gut told her this was serious. Ashton has started acting. The words rang in her mind like a warning. But a warning of what? After weighing the risks, she decided to go, but not without taking precautions. First, she texted Paige, explaining where she was going and who she was meeting. Second, she turned on location sharing on her phone and sent it to her friend. Third, she left a written note in the apartment, detailing the situation, just in case something went wrong. The evening city was buzzing with life. People crowded near the metro, heading home from work. Some stopped at flower stalls, picking out bouquets for loved ones. Others filled their baskets in corner stores. A typical spring evening, full of that early taste of summer. Penelope walked toward the park, her heart pounding in her throat, her palms damp with sweat. She felt like a character in a spy thriller, but this was real. Her real life, suddenly turned into a nightmare. The statue was surrounded by people. Tourists snapping photos, couples meeting for dates, street musicians playing something soft and melodic on guitars. Penelope scanned the crowd, looking for a man in a blue jacket with a newspaper. Penelope, a voice came from behind. She turned around. A stocky man in his 50s stood before her, with sharp gray eyes and a stern, angular face. Short cropped hair, rigid posture, everything about him had the air of military discipline. Dominic? She asked uncertainly. That's me, the man nodded. Let's step aside, too many ears around here. They headed deeper into the park, where there were fewer people. They sat down on a bench, and Dominic, after scanning their surroundings, began to speak. It's worse than we thought. Ashton found out Deborah met with you. How? Penelope asked, stunned. Were we being followed? Very possible. Your fiancé has a lot of contacts, including some who don't exactly operate within the law. But that's not the point. He set his plan in motion. What plan? Penelope felt a chill spread through her chest. According to my intel, he hired people to snatch the boy tonight. Deborah is panicking. She's picking up her son from school and planning to leave town. Oh my God, Penelope whispered. I have to help her. How can I reach her? You can't, Dominic said firmly. She turned off her phone. Smart move, it might be tracked. Right now, what matters most is that you stay safe too. Me? Why me? You're a witness. The only one who's actually heard him make a direct threat. Ashton knows that, and he's not likely to let you just walk away. Penelope suddenly realized she had never truly seen Ashton angry. Irritated? Sure. Displeased? Often. But real rage? He always kept that hidden. What would he do once he found out she knew everything? That she could testify against him? What should I do? She asked, her hands trembling. First, don't go home, Dominic said firmly. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? With a friend. He doesn't know where. Good. Stay there. I'll get in touch with a trusted contact in the police. With Deborah's evidence and your testimony, we might actually have a shot at stopping him. And Deborah and the boy? Penelope couldn't stop thinking about the child in danger. I'll take care of them, Dominic assured her. I've got a plan. But for your safety, it's better you don't know the details. He handed her a small flash drive. This has everything we've collected on Ashton. If anything happens to me, make sure this gets to the right people. Penelope took the flash drive, stunned by how surreal everything felt. Just 2 days ago, she'd been shopping for a wedding dress. And now she was holding classified information from a stranger, like a character in a crime novel. "Who are you?" she asked bluntly. "Why are you helping Deborah?" Dominic gave a small smile. "Let's just say I don't like seeing women and kids get hurt. Especially someone like Deborah. She once helped my daughter land a job when no one else would take a girl with no experience. I'm a retired detective. Do a bit of consulting now and then. And sometimes," he paused, "sometimes I help set things right." He checked his watch. "I have to go. Stay out of sight, don't go home, and keep your phone on you. But be ready to ditch it if you think you're being tracked. I'll be in touch." Dominic stood up, gave her a quick nod, and walked briskly toward the park exit. Penelope stayed seated on the bench, gripping the flash drive in her hand. The reality of what was happening still didn't feel real. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ashton. "Where are you? I called the library, you weren't there. Call me back. Urgent." Penelope flinched. He was checking up on her. Of course he was. Ashton had always been suspicious, and now, his paranoia was clearly in overdrive. She decided not to reply. Let him think her battery died. Or that she hadn't seen the message. Anything to buy more time, for herself, for Deborah, for Cody. The entire way back to Paige's apartment, Penelope couldn't shake the feeling she was being watched. She changed routes several times, stopped into stores, waited before continuing. Maybe it was paranoia, but better safe than sorry. Paige came home late, around 11. She looked tired but had that sharp, determined spark in her eyes. "Well? Did you meet this Dominic guy?" she asked, kicking off her shoes in the entryway. "Yeah," Penelope nodded. "And the news isn't good. Ashton knows I met with Deborah. He's planning to kidnap her son." "Jesus," Paige exhaled. "This is serious. Did you call the cops?" Dominic said he'd contact the right people himself. "And you're sure you can trust him?" Paige frowned. "Who is he anyway?" "Ex-detective, retired," Penelope rubbed her eyes. "At this point, nothing surprises me anymore. 2 days ago I was planning a wedding. Now I'm hiding from my fiancé and helping protect a child from being abducted. Life throws stuff at us no screenwriter could dream up," Paige said philosophically. "Remember back in 2008? Overnight, people went broke. Who saw that coming?" She walked into the kitchen and switched on the kettle. "All right. Let's figure out your next steps." "I honestly don't know," Penelope admitted. "I'm waiting to hear back from Dominic. I just hope Deborah and the boy are okay." "What about your stuff at the apartment?" Paige asked practically. "Passport, ID, money." Penelope sighed. "Everything's still there. And not just documents. My mom's ring, the one she gave me for my 18th. A photo album with my parents. Little things, but sentimental," Paige nodded. "I get it. But you can't go back. Not yet." They sat in the kitchen, sipping tea, and Penelope told her everything she had learned from Deborah and Dominic. Paige listened closely, occasionally asking questions, her old police instincts kicking in. She thought clearly, analyzed facts, made connections. "Ashton's a top-tier con artist," she said in the end. "Smart, charming, understands people. Guys like him rarely get caught because they know how to pick their targets. Usually wealthy women with confidence and no reason to suspect they're being used." "I was the perfect target," Penelope said with a bitter smile. "Raised in a good family, never had to face real hardship. I believed in the fairy tale. Thought I'd finally found the right guy." "Don't blame yourself," Paige squeezed her hand. "People like Ashton are predators. They know how to blend in, how to earn trust. And they strike when you least expect it." Penelope let out a breath. You know what hurts the most? I wasn't even in love with the real Ashton. I fell for the version he created for me. The fantasy. I never even knew the real man. Well, now you do, Paige said firmly. And now you can stop him. Before he ruins someone else's life. Penelope's phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? Penelope? Deborah's voice sounded anxious. It's me. Cody and I are safe. Dominic helped us get out of the city. Thank God. Penelope breathed. I was so worried. Ashton really did send people to the house. But we were already gone. Now he's furious, and he'll be looking for someone to blame. I'm afraid you're in danger. I'm not at home, Penelope assured her. And I'm not planning on going back. Good, Deborah replied, sounding relieved. We're filing a report with the police tomorrow. We have witnesses to the attempted abduction. Dominic has it all set up. This should all be over soon. I hope so, Penelope murmured, nervously fidgeting with the edge of the tablecloth. Take care of Cody. I will. And take care of yourself. The call ended. Penelope looked at Paige. Deborah and her son are safe. They're going to the police tomorrow. Well, finally some good news, Paige said with a tired smile. Now get some sleep. It's been a long day, and tomorrow won't be any easier. Penelope went to bed, but sleep didn't come. Her mind was filled with scattered thoughts, faces, and words. Outside, the city murmured through the night. The occasional hum of cars, a distant siren, and the wind rustling the spring leaves. Suddenly, she remembered the day she first met Ashton. A business seminar in a trendy loft, champagne at the buffet, casual conversations. He had approached her himself, asked about her work, listened intently, made clever remarks. Invited her to dinner that same evening. And she? She had been enchanted from the first moment. It never even crossed her mind that their meeting might not have been random. That he might have chosen her in advance, studied her, prepared. Still unable to sleep, Penelope opened her phone and, without really thinking, pulled up the Boston Police website. Among the leadership team was Brandon Lewis, Deputy District Attorney. There was his photo. A serious man in a suit. Awards, titles, accolades. A respected figure who had built his career from scratch. Once upon a time, she thought he wasn't ambitious enough. Thought small-town life wasn't for her. But now it turned out that it was there, far from the noise and glamour of the big city, where the real values had survived. Honesty. Integrity. Staying true to yourself. Suddenly, Penelope felt overwhelmed with shame, for her past arrogance, for the way she had dismissed real love in pursuit of an illusion. What would Brandon say now if he knew everything? Would he laugh? Gloat? Or simply show sympathy, quietly, without judgment? With those thoughts swirling in her head, she finally drifted off. In the morning, she was woken by a phone call. Dominic. Penelope, wake up. We've got a problem. Ashton's gone. What do you mean, gone? Penelope asked, still groggy. He found out we were preparing to go to the police. He vanished. The apartment's empty, the car's gone, his phone's off. Deborah and the boy are under guard, but Ashton could be anywhere. And who knows what state he's in. Penelope felt a chill down her spine. The man who had been lying beside her just 2 days ago was now an invisible threat, hiding somewhere in the city. And no one knew what he might do. What do you mean, vanished? She sat in the kitchen, gripping a mug of tea with both hands. Where could he have gone? Paige, on her way to work, paused in the doorway. Maybe he fled the country. Guys like him always have some escape plan. I don't think so, Penelope shook her head. His passport was at the apartment. I saw it in the desk drawer just last week. Second passport. Backup IDs. Pros like him always have that kind of stuff, Paige said. Did you call that, what's his name? Dominic? I did. He said Deborah and the boy are protected, and they've got someone watching our place in case Ashton shows up. Well, that's something, Paige sighed. Listen, I have to get to work. Will you be okay on your own? Maybe you should get out of town too, at least until this blows over. Penelope hesitated. Maybe she really should go to her mom's. Or just get as far away from all this as possible. But then again, running wouldn't solve anything. No. I'm staying, she said firmly. This has to end. Deborah and Cody aren't the only ones Ashton could have hurt. If he escapes now, he'll just find new victims. That's brave of you, Paige nodded. But be careful. Here are the keys. If anything happens, call me. I'll try to come back early. After Paige left, Penelope took out the flash drive Dominic had given her and plugged it into her laptop. It was packed with documents, records, statements, photos, audio recordings. Ashton's fraud history stretched back years. She scrolled through the files, carefully reading, until she came across a photo that made her heart skip a beat. Ashton, arm around an older man, standing in front of a police department sign. The caption read, "With my uncle after closing a big case, 2018. Uncle? Ashton had an uncle in law enforcement. That explained a lot. How he managed to avoid consequences. His confidence. His sense of invincibility. Penelope called Dominic and told him what she'd found. Yeah, I know about him, he replied. Victor Henderson. Retired major crimes detective. Still keeps in touch with his nephew. Though I doubt he approves of what Ashton's doing. You think Ashton might have gone to him? It's possible. My people are checking it out. Your people? Penelope echoed. Let's just say I have a wide network, Dominic said evasively. In any case, we'll keep you updated. Just don't go home. And keep your phone on. After the call, Penelope decided to check her work email. She was supposed to be back in the office tomorrow, and she hadn't checked in for 2 days. She opened her laptop and found dozens of messages, mostly work-related. But one subject line made her blood run cold. From Ashton. Subject, we need to talk. With trembling fingers, she opened the email. Penelope, I know you met with Deborah. I know she's filled your head with lies about me. It's not true. She's bitter because I left her for someone better. Classic jealous ex, don't believe her. We need to talk. I can explain everything. Meet me at our cafe at 7 tonight. I'll be waiting. P.S. If you don't show up, I'll know you've chosen her side, and then the conversation will be very different. The last line carried a clear threat. Penelope read the message over and over, trying to decide what to do. Should she tell Dominic? Absolutely. But should she go? It could be a trap. Or, it could be a chance. A moment to finally look the man who had deceived her in the eye. Hear the truth from him directly. She called Dominic and read him the email. Under no circumstances do you go alone, he said firmly. It's too dangerous. We'll set up surveillance. We'll be watching. But ideally, you shouldn't go at all. What if this is the only chance to catch him? Penelope countered. You said yourself, he disappeared. Now he's asking for a meeting. Dominic paused. All right, he said at last. But on my terms. We'll set everything up. No improvising. You realize you're dealing with someone who has nothing to lose. I do, Penelope said quietly. They agreed on the plan. Then Penelope replied to Ashton with a short message, okay. I'll be there at 7. The rest of the day passed in anxious anticipation. Penelope couldn't read, couldn't watch TV, her thoughts kept circling back to the meeting ahead. What would Ashton say? How would he defend himself? Would he admit to anything, or keep denying the obvious? An hour before the scheduled time, Dominic arrived with two solid-looking men he introduced as colleagues. They quickly went over the plan. You'll go into the cafe and sit at a table that's clearly visible from the window. Don't approach him first. Wait until he comes to you. We'll be stationed both outside and inside. If there's even the slightest danger, we'll step in. What if he starts asking questions, what I know? Penelope asked. Tell the truth. But not all of it, Dominic advised. Say you met with Deborah, and she told you about the son. But don't mention the police, or our plan, or any evidence. Let him think you're suspicious, but unsure. Half an hour before the meeting, Penelope was already near the cafe. The historic district looked unusually quiet for a weekday evening. A light rain had started to fall, and people were hurrying under umbrellas or huddling beneath storefront awnings. Inside, the cafe greeted her with warmth and the smell of fresh coffee. Penelope picked a table by the window, just as they'd agreed, and ordered a latte. Her heart was pounding so loudly, she felt like everyone around could hear it. She hadn't seen Ashton since that morning she'd run out of the apartment, convinced she was late for a meeting. It felt like a lifetime ago. Right on time, the cafe door opened, and he walked in. Tall, fit, dressed in a dark coat. His hair was slightly damp from the rain, and his face wore the familiar, easy smile. But Penelope suddenly realized she felt nothing anymore, nothing but disgust and fear. Ashton spotted her, gave a slight nod, and made his way over. He sat down across from her, removed his coat, and studied her for a moment in silence, as if trying to read her thoughts. I'm glad you came, he said at last. That same warm tone was in his voice, the one that used to make her knees weak. Now it sounded fake, like cheap costume jewelry. Talk, she said shortly, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm listening. What exactly did Deborah tell you? He leaned in. That I'm a monster. That I threatened her. Stole money. It's all lies, Penelope. She's just bitter because I left her for someone else. For you. Penelope clenched her fists under the table. And the boy? She asked quietly. Cody. Is he your son? Ashton faltered for a moment but quickly recovered. Yes, he's my son. But Deborah refuses to let me see him. She's turning him against me. You know how ex-wives are, they use the kids to get revenge. Ex-wives? Penelope raised an eyebrow. You never told me you were married. That was before I met you, Ashton waved it off. I didn't want to upset you. It's all in the past. What matters is our future. He reached for her hand, but she pulled it away. What's wrong? I heard your call with Deborah, Penelope said, her voice calm and clear. That day, on the stairs. You threatened to take her child if she didn't pay you $50,000. Ashton's face froze for a moment, but he quickly masked the reaction. You misunderstood. That wasn't a threat. Deborah owes me that money. I invested it in her business back when we were married. She's refusing to pay it back. And as for the child, she's the one threatening to keep him from me if I try to collect what I'm owed. Don't lie, Penelope said quietly. I know everything. About your scams. The women you conned. I have proof. Ashton glanced around, as if checking to make sure no one was listening. Then his face changed. The smile vanished, and his eyes darkened. And what are you planning to do with this so-called evidence? He asked, his voice edged with steel. That depends on you, Penelope replied, doing her best to stay calm. If you leave Deborah and the boy alone, if you return the money you stole. You threatening me? He cut her off. Do you even understand who you're dealing with? I do, she said with a steady nod. A criminal. Someone who uses people without a shred of guilt. Oh, so now you're fighting for justice? Ashton sneered. Teaming up with that hysterical Deborah and her little band of heroes? Aren't you scared? I am, Penelope admitted, but that's not going to stop me. Ashton leaned back in his chair and suddenly laughed. You know, you surprise me. Didn't expect you to have this kind of backbone. Usually women in your position just cry and beg not to be left behind. I'm not like most women. I can see that, he nodded. So what do you want? Me to turn myself in? Apologize? Fall to my knees? For starters, stop threatening Deborah and her son. Your son, by the way. Ashton's face twisted. I never wanted the kid. Never needed one. He was just leverage. Penelope flinched. How could anyone say that about their own child? You're a monster, she whispered. I'm a realist, Ashton shrugged. I always have been. And you knew that. You wanted a charming prince on a white horse, someone to solve all your problems, adore you, spoil you. You got what you wanted. So why are you angry now? Because it was all a lie. Penelope raised her voice, and a few customers turned to glance at them. She forced herself to lower it again. All of it, from the beginning. You never loved me. And you never loved me, Ashton replied, locking eyes with her. You loved the image of success. The money, the status, the lifestyle, that's what you really wanted. So we're even. He was right. And that stung more than anything. She had chosen Ashton largely because of the image he presented, because of what he seemed to represent. She had traded real love for a polished illusion. You're right, Penelope said, surprising herself. I'm not blameless. But unlike you, I didn't lie. I didn't threaten people. I didn't use a child to get what I wanted. So what now? Ashton drummed his fingers on the table. You came for closure. An apology? Neither, Penelope said. I came to tell you it's over. And that you're going to be held accountable. Trying to scare me? Ashton smirked. Won't work. I've got powerful people behind me. You mean your uncle in law enforcement? Penelope asked, noting with satisfaction the flicker that crossed his face. We know about him. And plenty more. We? Ashton narrowed his eyes. Who's we? Doesn't matter, Penelope replied. What matters is that your little game is over. If you have any sense left, you'll get up, walk out of this city, this country, preferably, and never come near Deborah, Cody, or me again. Ashton looked at her with pure, undisguised rage. For the first time since they met, Penelope saw him without the mask, no charm, no pretense. And what she saw was terrifying. You'll regret this, he said quietly. All of you will. He stood up abruptly, threw on his coat, and walked out of the cafe without looking back. Penelope exhaled, only then realizing she had barely been breathing the entire time. A minute later, Dominic slid into the seat across from her. You did great, he said with approval. You held your ground. My guys are tailing him now. We won't lose him. You think he'll try to run? She asked. I'm sure of it, Dominic nodded. Guys like him always run once they realize the game's up. But he won't get far. We've already alerted transit police, his info is in the system. The moment he tries to leave the city, he'll be picked up. What if he has fake documents? We'll catch him anyway, Dominic said confidently. He's got a distinctive face, and we've got him in every database now. There's nowhere to hide. Penelope rubbed her temples. Her head throbbed from the stress of the past few days. So what do I do now? She asked. Go back to your friend's place and rest, Dominic smiled. You've done your part. Now it's on us. Back at Paige's apartment, Penelope felt a wave of exhaustion crash over her. Her whole body ached like she'd just run a marathon. She took a shower, made a cup of tea, and sat on the couch, staring at her phone. No updates. Paige came home around 9 with a bag of groceries and a bottle of wine. "How'd it go?" she asked as soon as she stepped inside. Penelope told her everything, about the meeting with Ashton, his reaction, Dominic's words. "And you really think they'll catch him?" Paige raised an eyebrow. "That guy's been getting away with this stuff for years. You think he'll finally slip up now?" "I don't know," Penelope admitted. "But Dominic seems solid. And they clearly have serious connections." They ate dinner and had a glass of wine, talking through everything. Paige remained skeptical. Penelope was torn between hope and fear. Late in the evening, Dominic called. "Penelope, we've got a problem. We lost him." "What do you mean lost him?" she asked, her blood running cold. "He got in a taxi, drove a few blocks, then stopped near a shopping mall. Went inside, and slipped out a different exit. Blended into the crowd. My team's searching, but so far, nothing." "What now?" Penelope asked, the fear creeping back in. "Now, you have to be twice as careful. He's cornered, and might act on impulse. Don't leave the apartment. Don't talk to strangers. Stay reachable. We're still looking." After that, sleep was out of the question. Paige was restless too. "Maybe we should call in a patrol unit," she said. "I still have some contacts at the precinct." "And tell them what?" Penelope countered. "That my ex-fiancé might be out to hurt me. Without evidence, they won't even file a report." They locked all the windows, double-checked the doors, and pulled the curtains shut. Paige pulled a baseball bat from the closet, a souvenir from her athletic past, and leaned it against the front door. "Just in case," she said. Time dragged by painfully slow. They sat in the kitchen, listening to every creak and rustle. Pipes groaned in the old building, a TV played somewhere upstairs, and occasionally a car passed outside. "You know what I regret most?" Penelope said suddenly. "Letting Brandon go. Not going with him back then. Maybe everything would have turned out differently." "Don't torture yourself," Paige replied. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that you've learned from yours. Now you can make things right." "Make things right?" Penelope gave a bitter smile. "It's been 15 years. He's probably married, has a family, kids. And me. I almost married a con artist." Key word, almost, Paige pointed out. "You got out in time. And about Brandon? Why not check? We live in the internet age. Look him up. Send a message. And say what? Hi, I dumped you for my career 15 years ago, and now I suddenly remembered you. At least say you're sorry," Paige shrugged. "It might ease your mind. Then see where it goes." Penelope sighed and opened her laptop. Her fingers automatically typed the name. Brandon Lewis. Same result, an official profile, a photo in a suit, a dry biography. "Nothing personal," she said, disappointed. "Just his title, rank, and professional achievements." "What about social media?" Paige suggested. Penelope tried a few major platforms, but came up empty. Either Brandon wasn't on them or his profiles were private. "Dead end," she sighed. "Or maybe it's fate," Paige said thoughtfully. "Maybe you need to deal with the present before digging up the past." Penelope was about to reply when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "I'm at your place. I know you're not here. But I think you'll want to come back once you see who's visiting." Then came a photo. A frightened elderly woman sitting in a chair, with Ashton standing beside her. Penelope stared in horror. she recognized her mother. "Oh my God," she whispered, showing the picture to Paige. "He's taken my mom." Paige turned pale. "Call the police. And Dominic. Now." But before Penelope could dial, another message arrived. "You don't have much time. Come home. Alone. No cops. Or mommy gets hurt." And now, Penelope was faced with the most terrifying choice of her life. "I'm going," she said, jumping to her feet. "Stop." Paige grabbed her arm. "Are you out of your mind? He'll kill both of you." "She's my mother," Penelope said, her voice cracking with tears. "I can't leave her." "Which is exactly why we need to call the police and Dominic. They know how to handle this." Penelope hesitated. Paige was right. Going alone to confront an unhinged Ashton was madness. But her mom. "Okay," she finally nodded. "We'll call. But I'm still going. I'll try to stall until they get there." They called Dominic, who reacted immediately. "Stay put. I'm sending a team to your apartment. And do not go on your own." That's exactly what he wants. "But my mom." "We'll get her out," Dominic said firmly. "We've got trained professionals. The key is not to provoke him. If you show up, it'll only escalate." "How do I know you'll make it in time? That he won't hurt her?" "Because your mother is the only leverage he has," Dominic said. "As long as he has her, he knows you'll do what he says. He's not stupid enough to lose that advantage." The reasoning made sense, but Penelope's heart was torn apart by anxiety. Every minute of waiting felt like an eternity. She couldn't sit still, pacing the apartment, constantly checking her phone. "Maybe I should call him," she suggested. "Say I'm on my way. Try to buy some time." "Too risky," Paige shook her head. "What if he asks for a video call? Sees you're not actually in a taxi?" Just before midnight, another message came from Ashton. "Time's almost up. Where are you?" Penelope couldn't take it anymore and dialed his number. "I'm in a cab," she lied, trying to keep her voice calm. "I'm almost there. Please, don't hurt my mom." "Don't lie to me, Penelope," Ashton said with unnerving calm. "I know you're not in a cab. You're at your friend's place." "Yes, don't act surprised. I've always known where you are." Penelope's breath caught. "How? You think I didn't check your contacts? Didn't find out the addresses of your friends and relatives? I always plan ahead, sweetheart. Always." "What do you want?" she asked directly. "Now that's the right question," he replied, clearly pleased. "I want you to come home. Alone. And I want everything you have on me, flash drives, documents, your phone with all the messages. All of it. And if I refuse? Then your mommy and I might have a little accident. You know how many elderly people die in gas leaks every year? Sad statistics." Penelope felt sick with fear and disgust. She didn't recognize the man she had spent the past year with. How had she never seen this darkness in him? This void? "I'll come," she said quietly. "Just don't hurt her. Good girl. I'll be waiting, sweetheart." He drew out the last word with cruel sarcasm, and Penelope flinched. When she hung up, Paige was watching her with visible alarm. "You're not actually going, are you?" "I am," Penelope said firmly, pulling the flash drive Dominic had given her out of her bag. "But not the way he expects." She quickly dialed Dominic and told him everything. "He knows where I am. He knows about Paige. He's threatening to cause a gas explosion. I have to go." "I understand how you feel," Dominic said seriously. "But giving in to a terrorist is the worst thing you can do. My team is already at your building, assessing the situation. Neighbors report everything's quiet. No yelling, no signs of violence. So my mom's okay. Most likely. He's keeping her scared but unharmed, for now. It's in his interest to wait for you. What should I do? Wait for our signal. We've contacted the gas company, they're shutting off the supply to the whole building. Just in case. And we're preparing a rescue op. But if he sees the police? He won't. We're professionals, Penelope. Trust us. Before she could even hang up, there was a knock at the door. Paige cautiously looked through the peephole. 2 men in dark clothing, no visible badges, were standing outside. Penelope, one of them asked. We're with Dominic. We need to move, now. They entered the apartment and laid out the plan. Penelope was to go to the building, but not enter. On Dominic's signal, she would text Ashton that she was outside. At that moment, the tactical team would breach the apartment through the balcony. The entire building was already under surveillance, and the neighbors on the floor had been evacuated. What if he hurts my mom? Penelope asked, her stomach tightening with fear. We've got snipers on nearby rooftops, one of the men replied. If he makes any move to harm her, we'll act. But it won't come to that. We've done this many times. The most important thing is that you follow instructions exactly. Soon, Penelope was sitting in a car with tinted windows, headed toward her building. One of the agents was seated beside her, maintaining constant contact with the team. We're close, he said into the radio as the car turned onto her familiar street. Is the target in position? Confirmed, came a voice through the earpiece. Target is inside the apartment. Hostage is alive, located in the living room. No explosives detected. We're ready, 3 minutes. The car stopped a short distance from the building. From here, Penelope had to walk the rest of the way, staying in contact through a tiny earpiece. Walk slowly. Don't rush, the agent instructed. When you reach the entrance, stop and wait for the signal. Under no circumstances are you to go inside, no matter what happens. Her heart pounded wildly as Penelope walked down the empty evening street. It felt like every window was watching her, every shadow hiding danger. She felt like a puppet in someone else's hands, first Ashton's, now these mysterious specialists. As she reached the building entrance, she stopped. Lights were on in their apartment. Everything looked so normal, like there wasn't a hostage crisis unfolding behind those windows. I'm here, she whispered into the mic. Copy, said the voice in her ear. Wait for the signal. The seconds dragged by unbearably slow. Penelope shifted from foot to foot, eyes fixed on the windows. No movement. No sign of an operation. Ready, the voice finally said. Send the message. With trembling fingers, Penelope typed. I'm outside. Open the door. The reply came instantly. Come up. 6th floor. You know the way. Message sent, she said into the mic. Copy. Hold position. We're going in. What happened next was a blur. Silence in her earpiece. Then a muffled sound from above. Muted shouting. The toll of the bell tower nearby, striking midnight. And suddenly, a loud crash that made her flinch. For a brief moment, the light in their apartment window flared, then went dark again. What's happening? She asked in panic. But the earpiece was silent. Then, like shadows rising from the ground, people in dark gear appeared around the building. Some ran toward the entrance, others spoke rapidly into radios. Penelope stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Finally, a voice came through the earpiece. Target neutralized. Hostage is safe. You can enter. Penelope ran to the entrance. This time, the elevator was working, and she jabbed the button for her floor, praying her mother was all right. The doors opened, revealing uniformed agents moving about the hallway. The apartment door was wide open. "Mom!" Penelope shouted as she ran inside. Her mother was sitting on the couch in the living room, wrapped in a blanket. A medic was beside her, checking her blood pressure. When she saw Penelope, she reached out with trembling hands. "Penelope." They embraced, and Penelope finally broke down in tears, out of relief, fear, and the overwhelming realization that the nightmare was finally ending. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" she asked, scanning her mother's pale face. "I'm all right, sweetheart." Just scared to death, her mother tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "He came in, said you two had a fight, that you ran away. Of course I let him in. Then he pulled out a knife and started threatening me. Wanted me to call you, find out where you were. And now? Where is he?" "He's gone," Dominic said, stepping into the room. "It's over, Penelope. He won't hurt anyone else." "What happened to him?" Penelope wasn't sure she wanted to know. "He resisted arrest. Got a minor injury, nothing serious. He'll live. But he won't be seeing the outside world for a long time." "What are the charges?" "Hostage-taking, threats to kill, large-scale fraud, failure to pay child support," Dominic listed. "And that's just the beginning. Once we complete the investigation, the list is likely to grow." The medic said her mother was stable but advised taking her to the hospital overnight for observation. Stress at her age could have delayed effects. "I'm going with you," Penelope said firmly. "You don't have to, darling," her mother said, gently patting her hand. "I'm okay. You need to rest. Come tomorrow, and we'll talk calmly." After the ambulance left, Penelope remained alone in the apartment. The place was a mess, things scattered everywhere. Clearly, Ashton had been searching for anything that could incriminate him. An empty whiskey bottle and a dirty glass sat on the table. The air smelled of alcohol, and burnt paper. "He burned some documents," Dominic said, noticing her look. "Probably tried to destroy evidence. But we already have enough." Deborah handed over bank statements. "We've got phone recordings, testimonies from other victims." "How are they?" "Deborah and her son?" "They're safe. Under protection in a secure location. Deborah asked me to thank you. You helped them more than you know." Penelope sank onto the couch, exhausted. "I don't even know what to do now. My whole life turned upside down in a matter of days." "Start fresh," Dominic said gently. "You've got your job. Friends. Your mother. You're smart. Strong. You'll be okay." He handed her a business card and promised to stay in touch if she needed anything. Investigators collected some of Ashton's belongings as evidence, took Penelope's initial statement, and finally left her alone in the apartment that just yesterday had felt like a cozy nest. Now it felt like a crime scene. Paige had offered to take her back to her place, not wanting her to be alone after everything. But Penelope declined. She needed time to herself, to process it all, to accept this new reality. She took a hot shower, changed into clean clothes, and sat by the window with a cup of tea. The city stretched out before her, lights, roads, sleeping skyscrapers. Somewhere out there, people were living their own lives, full of joys and worries, dreams and disappointments. They had no idea that tonight, her world had been split in two, before and after. Her phone buzzed. A message from Deborah. "Thank you for everything. You saved me and Cody. If you ever want to talk, I'm always here." Penelope smiled. Strangely, she felt lighter, as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted off her shoulders. Yes, there would be interviews, probably a trial, and she would have to testify against Ashton. But all of that seemed minor compared to what could have happened. Suddenly, Brandon's face appeared in her mind. She wondered what he was doing now. What he was thinking. If he even remembered her. 15 years was a long time. People change, forget, move on. Maybe he had a happy family now, kids, a quiet life. And there probably wasn't much room in that life for memories of an old girlfriend who had chosen a big city career over love. Penelope opened her laptop, found the phone number for the Boston Police Department's main office, and wrote it down in her notebook. Not to call right away, just in case. For when things settled down, when the emotional wounds began to heal, when she was ready. With that thought, she finally went to bed. For the first time in days, she slept without fear, without nightmares, without the weight of a new threat. 8 months later, snow was falling in heavy flakes, blanketing the streets of Boston in white. Penelope stepped out of the district police building and shivered against the December cold. It had been a frigid but sunny winter. The city felt quiet compared to her old home, quaint streets, historic buildings, a slower rhythm. She was only in town for the day, to give additional testimony in Ashton's case. It turned out he had connections in Boston too, and had conned several women here as well. The case was growing like a snowball. His trial was set for the following month. The preliminary hearing had already taken place, and her lawyer said the prosecution had a strong case, too many witnesses, too much evidence. Ashton was facing serious prison time. Deborah had returned to a normal life, no longer living in fear for her son. She and Penelope had even met a few times, just to talk and catch up. Cody turned out to be a bright, sensitive boy, nothing like his father in temperament. Penelope was grateful he had a strong, smart mother to guide him. After everything that happened, she took some time off, spent a lot of it with her mom, who thankfully had recovered quickly from the trauma. "Won't be that easy to break me," her mom would joke, then add more seriously, "You know, I always thought you made a mistake not going with Brandon. But I didn't say anything, I didn't want to pressure you." Those words stuck with Penelope. She often found herself wondering how her life might have turned out if she had made a different choice 15 years ago. If she had gone with him, started over, built her career from scratch, but with someone who had truly loved her. And now she stood in front of the Boston District Police building, unable to take that final step. In the pocket of her coat was a small note with Brandon's number, the one she had finally gathered the courage to ask for from the secretary, citing important case materials. Call him. Don't call. It felt foolish to reappear in his life after so many years. Maybe he wouldn't even remember her. Or worse, he would remember, with bitterness. The crunch of footsteps in the snow pulled her out of her thoughts. Someone was coming down the steps. Penelope looked up, and froze. It was Brandon. He looked the same, yet different. Older, more grounded. Wearing a dark, formal coat, eyes serious. He stopped, too, recognizing her. "Penelope," he said in disbelief. "Is that you?" "Hi, Brandon," she said, her heartbeat quickening. "I came to give testimony in the Henderson case." "I know," he nodded. "I saw your name in the files. Didn't expect you to show up in person." They stood there, in the middle of a snow-covered plaza, unsure what to say after all these years. Snow was falling around them, people passed by on their way, and somewhere in the distance, Christmas music played. "How have you been?" Penelope asked at last. "I read you've had an impressive career." "No complaints," he said with a faint smile, and that smile stirred something inside her. The same smile from 15 years ago. "And you? Still with the big law firm?" "Yeah, still there." An awkward pause. Both unsure how to bridge the years between them. "Are you in a hurry?" Penelope asked finally. "Want to grab a coffee? Talk a bit? There's a lot I need to tell you. Anne. I owe you an apology." Brandon looked at her thoughtfully, as if weighing something. Then he nodded. "There's a nice place nearby. Come on, I'll show you." They walked side by side through the snowy street, their footprints marking a new path in the fresh snow. Penelope didn't know what lay ahead. Whether she could truly fix a mistake made 15 years ago. Whether she'd be brave enough to start over. Whether Brandon would forgive her. But one thing she did know, that overheard conversation on the stairwell hadn't just shattered her illusion of happiness with Ashton, it had given her a chance at something real. Sometimes, you have to lose everything to realize what truly matters. You know, she said as they stopped at a crosswalk, if the elevator hadn't broken, I never would have found out the truth about Ashton. The elevator? Brandon asked, looking at her with curiosity. It's a long story, Penelope smiled. I'll tell you over coffee. And they walked on, leaving the past behind them, heading toward a future that was just beginning. If you enjoyed the story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us stay motivated to create new and exciting stories every day. Don't miss the next video, it's right here on your main screen. Take care, and be happy.